Welcome to Stratfest, Meet the Festival for Serving Elizabeth. This is a chance for you to get to know a little bit more about the show, about these artists, and learn more about their careers. I'd like to begin by recognizing the land. Knowing we're all coming from different places today, I'll share that the Stratford Festival is situated on land and waterways originally cared for by the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Neutrals. I feel joy for this place where we make and share our art, and I'd invite you to learn about the communities and the land from which you're participating today. Serving Elizabeth is a play that explores who writes, records, and reimagines history. And I think it invites us to consider whose voices are missing, to think more deeply about the stories and histories we think we know. Provides an opportunity for us to look at how this applies close to home in our own lives and with regard to the stories we share of what makes a nation. Stratford has been a site of storytelling for thousands of years, and this morning I'm so excited to be meeting with two of its most gifted storytellers. My name's Lois Adamson. I work as the education director at the festival, and before diving into conversation, I'll provide a brief introduction to today's guests, Arlene Duncan and Sean Arbuckle. But I'll also remind you that this is an event at which we really hope to hear from you. Of course, I have many questions for Sean and Arlene, but really, as with all of our Meet the Festival events, we want to hear your questions. So let us know where you're tuning in from today. Ask your questions in the YouTube chat, and we will answer as many as we can in the time we have together this morning. So I'd like to properly welcome Sean Arbuckle and Arlene Duncan and thank them for joining us this morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Sean Arbuckle is an award-winning actor who works on stage and screen in both Canada and the US. This is his 19th season with the Stratford Festival. And in this season's production of Serving Elizabeth, he plays Talbot and Maurice. Selected festival credits include, just to name a few, Guys and Dolls, A Little Night Music, King John, The Pirates of Penzance, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Prior to March 2020, Sean was also in rehearsals for new musical Here's What It Takes. And before beginning his professional career, he trained at the Juilliard School. Hi, Sean.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Morning.
And making her Stratford debut, Arlene Duncan is an award-winning performing artist who has worked around the world on stage and screen. In this season's production of Serving Elizabeth, she plays Mercy and Patricia. Selected credits, again, just to name a few, include working as a series lead on CBC's Little Mosque on the Prairie, Up the Garden Path with Obsidian Theatre, Once on This Island with Acting Upstage, and as Caroline in Caroline or Change with Canadian Stage. And Arlene trained in musical theater at Sheridan College. Hi, Arlene.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you both so much for being with us today, particularly because you start previews for this show today. So it's a big day for you. For folks who don't know, what's the purpose of previews in a rehearsal process? What do they allow you to do?
Well, we haven't officially opened when we're doing previews. We can still make changes. We have an audience and we get to feel the energy of the audience and feel their reaction. But it's not, I mean, when you're doing the show, you're still learning and it's still growing and it's still changing, but we've made all of the official changes when we open.
Right. And what do you imagine it will be like to connect with audiences today after such a long time apart? What are you kind of expecting or preparing yourself for?
We had our first and only dress rehearsal last night, and it was wonderful just to have like an invited group of festival friends and patrons and people there to see this project that we've been working on, in our little COVID and rehearsal bubble for for a month or so. And I mean, already there was so much information. The audience was following along. I mean, I was thrilled to find that they were following along and listening and reacting and enjoying but with a level of participation that I had hoped for, but didn't know if we would get. You never know. not just with a new play like this, but also with this new experience of performing outside and all of the things that have gone along with this particular special season. So I just can't wait to share this story today and for the rest of the run.
And to see how different
Oh,
audiences react,
absolutely.
because we're not going to always have the same reaction with
No,
every audience.
no.
Right, of course. The show changes every show,
Mhm.
partly because of the audience that you share it with.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'll share a very brief synopsis of the play for folks who don't know, because it is a newer play. It takes place in two different locations. In Kenya in 1952, Mercy, a restaurant proprietor, is hired to cater the impending visit of Princess Elizabeth, soon to be queen. And then in 2015, another story unfolds in London, England, where a young Kenyan-born Canadian, Tia, is working as an intern on a TV drama series about the British royal family, while also pursuing a writing project of her own. And at first, these parallel narratives seem only coincidentally connected until a surprising twist reveals a deeper relationship between the two. And I won't say too much more. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm curious to know from the two of you, what do you hope audiences might know or think about before they come to the show?
Yeah, I wondered about that. There is a specific television show that this play was a reaction to by our playwright. Um, and I know when I first read the script last fall, I had seen the television show in question, um, and so I kind of I knew what it was referencing, and yet it was still, of course, a surprise to me. So but I don't think you have to have seen this show, but just I think we all have an awareness of our dramatization and uh, myth making around historical events. There's so many of them. There's the Diana Spencer movie that's coming out soon. There's Broadway. There's a Broadway play, a musical based on Diana's life that's going to be reopening again soon. So. Um, and not just the royal family. There's Hamilton. There's the reimagining of the American history story, and so I think just an awareness of how we tell and how we choose to tell our own stories um, is all really that's necessary. What do you think, Arlene?
And not only how we tell the stories, it's from what perspective we tell
Yeah.
the stories.
Hmm.
Because with the power of the media, when something's put out there, like, for example, the show in question, I don't know how to
I
mention the
know.
name of the show, people see that and they go, oh, because you've seen it, you think, well, that must have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
It's someone's perception and someone's perspective and someone's illustration of what history, of what happened in history, when it may or may not, and most likely is not true. So you have to consider the source for a lot of
Mhm.
things that we see.
I mean,
I
it
think
goes
that's
back for our audiences. I mean, Richard III, Shakespeare's take on that story, or any of his history plays. There's a society in England right now that is bent on rehabilitating Richard III's reputation because they feel that Shakespeare slighted him so. You know, uh, but the point is, any of these histories, movies, TV shows are, as Arlene says, from a certain perspective, and sometimes
And
they
it's
have
not only just TV shows per
yeah,
se. It's like, the very fact that we're renaming streets and renaming schools and renaming things
yeah,
because of, one person's perception of what a hero did. And then you realize they weren't such great people.
yeah.
So we shouldn't be celebrating these people. So things, when you're better educated, when you're more aware, you can take action on that.
Yeah. I think that's what's so exciting too about the medium of theater, is that in some ways it can help to make clearer that these are stories being told
Yes.
by
Absolutely.
different people, by multiple people, rather than this
From a
one single
perspective.
truth.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like that
Uh,
African proverb, when the lion tells the story of the hunt, you'll get a different perspective than the hunter.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing
Absolutely.
it, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
And I think there is a real hunger for like fiction or stories that are based on true events. Like people really love that.
yeah.
Um, and as you say, Sean, you don't necessarily need to know a lot about um, the histories that are explored in this play or the show that prompted Marcia to write it, because the story is told in the play itself.
Right.
Um,
Right.
though I am curious what both of you knew about the real historical events the play explores before you started working on the show, as well as what kind of research or explorations have happened as part of your work in rehearsals.
Well, I had watched the YouTube videos of the Queen, accepting the flowers and being lauded by the Kenyan people when she arrived, and the visit, the brief, but there wasn't much interaction with the actual Kenyans in the YouTube videos. And my personal research was to expose myself as much as I could to Kenyan culture, since I was going to have to be representing a Kenyan woman, and doing as much as I could to learn the accent. But it was, we have a dialect coach who has been helping us considerably with our accent. And
Amazing.
Little Mosque on the Prairie, I was doing West African, and he's Nigerian, and he was constantly going, Arlene, you're slipping back into that.
Nah.
We don't say it that way. Yeah. So it was interesting to learn about. It's always interesting to learn about different cultures.
Yeah. What about you, Sean?
Well, I grew up American, so we didn't have the same association with the royal family in terms of its history. So I didn't, all of this was kind of new to me. Um, my research mostly dealt with. I had a couple of hours this summer because I was waiting to get my car fixed, and so I brought the script with me, and I was just rereading it, and I was making notes about things I wanted to look up, or historical events, or words, or people, places. And in the first scene, my character has the opportunity to taste a lot of this African food that Kenyan food that Arlene's character makes. And I just got really hungry. And so my research, the jumping off point for a lot of my research had to do with, it's like, I don't want to just know what this food is. I actually want to taste it and eat it. So I went to the specialty market. I bought all these clues. I started to make all of these dishes that are made are mentioned in the first scene, and that was a really interesting jumping off point, because then I started to do research about how uh, West African in particular, but Kenyan food, or a lot of the traditions of the enslaved people started to inform our North American diet, and how that has grown and developed, and a lot of foods that I grew up with in the southern part of the United States were actually um, you know African or African influence. They were brought over there, and that we think of as traditional, or I thought of as traditional Southern food. No, it's traditional African food, or their best attempt at recreating the food from their home country after they came over as enslaved people, and um, which got me thinking and interested more in that relationship between uh, Africa and their colonizers, or and how the two communities worlds have coexisted and interplayed with each other in a way that now is maybe more invisible or taken for granted. Or anyway, that's kind of where I came from.
It
And then,
goes
of
There's
back.
course, thank
there's
goodness
a
we had a
wonderful
dramaturg to give us all the historical stuff.
there's a wonderful Netflix show called High on the
High on the
Hog that
Hog.
talks about that, how Southern food is
Yes.
really African food that was brought over by Africans. But I also have to give credit to Sean for our first day on stage, because it seems like our cast runs on food, people are always bringing in treats. But Sean made a beautiful maharagwe dish with ugali for us on our first day on stage, which we all got to share, and moved our dialect coach, who is Kenyan, to very emotionally to be seen and to have his traditional dish be shared by someone in the cast from North America. So that was lovely.
It goes back to what you were saying, Arlene, about whose perspective are we hearing the story from? I mean, I think all research should probably be food-based. That seems like a very
really
good
is the
way
best
to
way
go
to do
into
it.
anything.
Yeah.
But
I'm down.
as you're saying, Sean, it's so much about the storytelling of this food and what we think we know versus what the reality is. I think that's really, really great. You both play multiple characters in the show. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about each of you, about the two characters that you play, and how the doubling, you think, impacts the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
You go, Sean.
Okay. My first character, the first character that appears, is Talbot, who is an envoy for Princess Elizabeth. He's the one who hires Mercy, basically, to cook for Princess Elizabeth during her visit. My second character is Morris Gilder, who's the playwright of the screenwriter, the showrunner, or no, not the showrunner, the screenwriter of this series. That's takes place in 2015. But what happens when you double characters? You start to have echoes of the other characters, especially as the timeline is constantly going back and forth. So you start to get echoes of who the other character is, and how they react. And even though they're in a different relationship, you start to remember their other scenes, and so it's a wonderful way to just kind of re-emphasize that theme of the past, and how the past informs the present, and how the present deals with the past and tries to address it and move forward to a new present or a future. Yeah.
What about you, Arlene?
My two characters, I find them very different,
Mm-hmm.
but there are similarities, and that all of the women in this play are queens, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And Mercy is the queen of her domain. She carries herself as a queen. She is the queen of her domain, which is her restaurant, and she rules her domain. While my other character is in 2015, and she is also a queen, but she rules her. I don't want to give it away per se, but she also is in control of her area as well. She's a queen in her own way. So it's I think it's a statement on women and how we rule, and how we walk with our own kind of autonomy, and we all have our own power.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
the different manifestations of queendom, queenness, you know.
And like you say, you have these two very different characters, Arlene, but both embody that power
Right.
in their own worlds.
Yes.
Yeah. It sounds to me that you both are taking joy in the doubling of the show, and that there's it sort of feeds what you're doing. I'm wondering what you find challenging about playing multiple roles.
Costume changes, mostly, but
Wearing the right hat.
What was the joke? The
Yes.
running joke is like that acting is what we do in between costume
changes, yeah. So right now we're still dealing with that, and I love in the author's forward, playwright's forward to the printed version of the script, Marcia, who played Arlene's role in the first production of this play, specifically apologizes to the actors and designers of future productions for the scene changes and the costume changes that she's written into the script. So she's well aware; she knows. But that is there's a wonderful. I mean, sometimes we have time to do the costume changes off stage, traditional the way costume changes are traditionally done, and sometimes we change characters inside of the audience. And there's again, to your point of like, this is theater. This is theater telling this story. This is how we're doing it, and it's wonderful to like just watch that transformation.
Mhm.
Before we actually had our costumes, I would just go, impossible costume change, and here I
I like it. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's such a joy as an audience member to see that magic,
Hmm.
that theatrical magic happen. Like,
Hmm.
and as you say, where you start seeing parallels between your characters, the audience too gets to witness that
am.
and put pieces of the story together in a way that maybe they wouldn't if the casting
Hmm.
wasn't this way.
Right.
And I think they enjoy it, being
Yeah.
able to see that change.
Oh yeah,
They feel
oh
like they're
yeah.
part of it.
So this is a new play. It premiered in February 2020. And Marcia Johnson, the playwright who we've spoken about, has been in rehearsals with you.
Hmm.
Mm.
I'm wondering what's different about working on a show with a living playwright engaged in the work that the way that Marcia is versus on an older musical or a show that's a bit more set, where the creator is not part of that process.
Hmm.
Well, when the live playwright is there, if you have a question about intention or you have a question about what this phrase means, or you don't have to guess, you can
Hmm.
ask them, and there are changes that they can make on the spot, for to extend things, and you have permission, immediate permission to do things and make
Hmm.
changes and for
Hmm.
your character, etc., and for the
Hmm.
play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Marcy's actually made the changes she made to the script. She edited it a bit to kind of make it an intermissionless theater experience because that's what we're doing this season. So it's just slightly edited, uh, but she'd done most of that work, most all of that work um, before we started rehearsal. So she didn't make many changes during the rehearsal process. I've worked on some new plays where it's like new pages every day, and that's also exciting and its own kind of thrilling chaos. But as Arlene said, it's such a gift to be able to have the playwright actually there. Um, and see her smiling and like, okay, I don't know what we're doing, but we must be on the right direction because she seems pretty happy with it. So
Yes, and when she's smiling, you
yeah,
go, "Oh, I guess we're doing
yeah,
doing it
yeah,
right."
yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, as an actor herself too, I think Marcia has
Hmm.
an appreciation for and a deep understanding of what actors bring to a script and
Exactly,
that real connection that's so necessary. That's the whole thing.
exactly. Yeah.
And Sean, you touched on this briefly, but this season is an outdoor season for the festival. The shows are about 90 minutes long. I'm wondering for each of you, like, what's been the most interesting part of rehearsing and performing outside? Have you worked outside in theater before? What do you love about it? What's really tricky?
Do you want to go first, Sean?
Yeah, well, I think the only other outdoor play I've done was an outdoor version of All's Well That Ends Well 20 years ago. So, uh, but the thing about being outside, I mean, there's challenges in terms of like street noise or weather or heat, all those things. But I mean, to just feel the air moving and to know that it's special in terms of, especially in terms of what we are able to offer here at the festival. It's a special experience that the audiences, some of our audiences have been coming here for decades. They're not going to have a festival experience in this way again. So, as much as it's been challenging and different kinds of things to address and trying to negotiate, it's also just it feels special. It feels different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've done concerts and performances
Mm.
outside before, but this is different. I mean, this is sort of goes back to history in regards to
Mm-hmm.
doing Shakespeare and doing, Stratford under tents. But the
Mm-hmm.
only original other outdoor performance that I did was a site-specific version of The Music Man with Talkers Free Theater,
Oh,
where
you were
we
in that.
yes,
Oh,
it was so much fun.
awesome. I heard such great things about that.
It was a lovely cast. We did, like Trouble right
Yep.
here, right in the middle of the town square, and people would follow us all around the town of Barrie. It was a lot of fun, and we had, as Sean said, the elements of weather. We had to take the show indoors into the town hall to perform when we couldn't perform outside. But
Mm-hmm.
it was, it's a great experience because you have to. Um, to feel like you're part of, you're at the mercy of the elements,
Yeah.
but also in this situation, for me the biggest challenge is not so much, because we haven't really had the test of weather because we've been very
Right.
lucky. We've had rain, or we've had heat, but
Yeah.
it's making sure that you're sharing it, because we're doing it in the not so necessarily in the round, but it's kind of in an island, and
Yeah.
you want to, for me, it's being able to share it to the audience on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's feels like my greatest challenge.
Sean, you mentioned this is a season unlike any other that we've had at the festival, though, as Arlene says, it kind of goes back to some of those roots of performing in tents. And we have a question from Mark, who's watching with us right now, wondering, Arlene, what for you personally is the importance of this being your first season at Stratford?
Well, as this is my first season, have no idea if or when I will be back. I am taking it as, enjoying every moment, absorbing every moment. I'm being a complete tourist. I'm taking pictures of everything. I'm being part of everything, even though we had our first dress rehearsal, invited dress last night. We have another preview today. I'm doing this. I'm going to just participate as much as possible and absorb the experience.
That's how we should experience everything, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Absolutely.
our first time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And for you, Sean, you're used now to working in rep, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering what you're enjoying about not working in rep this season. What is it giving you?
Well, first of all, just glad to be working, whether it's in rep or not. You know, it was
Mhm.
last night was the first time in 18 months that, I'd been able to be on a stage and have a first or have a dress rehearsal. So, there's that. But the wonderful thing about rep is that you can you work on a play for a day, and then you have a chance to like put it on the shelf a bit, and then work on another play, and then when you come back to it, things, some things kind of answer themselves for you because you've had time either consciously or unconsciously to kind of solve your issues. So it feeds each project feeds each other
Mm-hmm.
as you go back and forth and rehearse it that way. But for a play like this, which is really it's a small play with big ideas and big ramifications, big echoes. It's really been wonderful to just kind of huddle up together with our company and with our director and our designers and the crew and the stage managers, and just kind of sit in it and delve into it and not feel like, okay, I've got this other show that I'm also working on, and we can really um, it was great to be able to just deal with these problems and deal with these issues and kind of work them out together. Um, Not every play, would needs to be done like that, but I really appreciated the opportunity to get to kind of nestle with this company.
Mm-hmm. To be so
Yeah.
immersive in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned this is your return to working as an artist
Hmm.
um, after 18 months. For both of you, has your practice changed at all in the last year and a half, or are there things that you've reflected on in this time that you really want to bring into your work now that maybe weren't there before?
I want to, I thought I had this before, and I did, but bring in that constant sense of gratitude and joy because it could be taken away, so easily. And as an actor, you never really lose sight of that because, unemployment is the one constant of our business. You're always in between jobs to a certain extent. But this past year was a real eye opener, and that Kimmy, our director, says you just always have to bring your A game to every performance, and that's never felt more important or personal than it does right now. Really want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Arlene?
I haven't done theater for a while, so this is a real blessing for me.
Mm.
Um, I when this all happened, the thing when the panorama happened, I thought, okay, so this industry is gone. What do I do? Because this is what I've been doing all my life. I what do I go back to school to become? Because I don't. This is what I've always done. So to be lucky enough to be one of the lucky ones. I mean, we have to say that the very fact that we're doing this, we're
Absolutely.
the lucky ones. Um, I just appreciating every day the fact that I am able to do what I love to do, and
Mm-hmm.
that now people can come because this business is we work in groups of people for groups of people, and that's like the entire
Yeah.
philosophy of what we can't do in this panini. It's
Yeah.
like what. So to be able to do it is just such a blessing. So I'm just absorbing all of it and enjoying it and making the best of it and being
Hmm.
grateful. And
Hmm.
And what we
And
haven't been able to do is what we need more than anything,
yes,
hmm.
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. You mentioned, Arlene, you haven't worked in theater for a while, but both of you are, I would say, known for your work as musical theater artists. What do you love about that medium? What do you love about musicals?
Well, I started as a singer, so to add acting as an element to it is another way of expressing myself. So to be able to act and sing and dance, to add all of those elements together. Um, I always, how do I put it? For some reason, when you add another element, it has taken away respect. As a musical theater artist, I think there's people sort of disrespect musical theater artists as not um, as valid as actors per se, but we're adding an additional element of singing and dancing, and it's another way of expressing yourself. And I think it's another way of relating to audiences, and it's another skill. And I think you should add additional respect to musical theater artists. And it's something that I love to do because I just love to do more. I love to do all of it. I've always loved to do all of it, and I love to be able to bring as much as of myself to performance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I'm very lucky that I've been doing, as I said, I've been doing more film and television than theater in the past while. And I do a show called Digstown that we premiere October 6th on CBC. And I also get to sing on that show. So that's another blessing that I get to act and sing. So, to be able to, the more you can add, that am able to add elements of what I do, the happier I am.
Yeah. And the
Hmm.
more you're able to give, it sounds like you
Yes,
really thrive
yes.
in that. Yeah. What about you, Sean? What do you love about working in musicals?
Um, well, it's so funny because, thank you for saying that. I'm known for my musical performances, but it it's funny because I worked at the festival for 7 seasons, I think, before I was cast in a musical. Before I was finally cast in a musical, and I would try to audition for them when I could, and I always got the impression that they were looking at me like, really, why do you want to do this? And then I finally was able to do a musical, and I did a few more, and now it's kind of like I remember I was talking to an actor. I was working on a show. I was working an actor and talking about my next season, and I was cast in one of the Shakespeare plays, and she's like, "Oh wow, that must be great for you. That'll be a change of pace." And I was like, "Wow," but that's where I sort of so that it's as Arlene was saying, it's the point, and that's why I love working at the festival is to be able to do as much of it as you possibly can. So I love doing the musicals because it's just thrilling to have an orchestra behind you and all of those kinds of that kind of emotional expression um, um, is just it's wonderful to be able to do. But then to be able to go back and then do wrestle with that iambic pentameter or do a new play like this or and find that because there's music in there's a music to every play. It's just in a musical it's more written down for you. There's a score
Mm-hmm.
and you have an orchestra and there's a beat. Um, but you have to find the music of every play, whether it be the blank verse of Shakespeare or in our play, how we are all kind of playing the instruments in this new musical piece so that we all as a company find the rhythm and the music of serving Elizabeth together.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not they're different, but they're not all that different. It's still trying to come together and play a piece of music um, together with your company, with guided by your director, and accentuated by the sound cues that your and light cues that your stage manager calls. It all comes together in a way that yeah.
I
So
like the thought of it as music. I think that's a
yeah.
really good way of putting it, for
Well,
sure. And
that's
as you say, you are bringing all that you can to
mhm,
whatever piece it is, whether it's
yeah.
explicitly a musical or not. Like
Hmm.
your gifts are there. Oh yeah.
Right. That was a thing I learned from Brian Bedford actually. I was working on a play with him and he likened the play to music and because we all had to figure out what instrument we were playing because it wasn't, in a play, it's not given to you what instrument you're playing. You have to figure it out along with your other cast members. And I like thinking of it that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a great question coming in live now. Arlene, you just mentioned The Music Man. Both of you have been in really well-known shows that have been done tons and tons of times, whether it's Shakespeare or something else, that people really think they know. And so there's a question about what you think about retelling history, since that's always an element of what you're doing as actors with shows like that have already been done. How
Hmm.
do you approach maybe not a show like this that's totally brand new, but how do you approach doing a show that's so well known, or playing a character that's either well known in the public imagination or is a character that people are very attached to?
Mm.
Um, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I think in any role, you bring some of yourself and your own experience. And I mean, an interpretation of Hello Dolly in the 40s would be different from an interpretation of Hello Dolly today. I'm just picking
Mhm.
a random well known musical. Um, the casting would be different. The
Hmm.
costume would be different. The music interpretation, although there's a score, there would still be a more modern interpretation of that. Um, I think we're people as we are becoming more aware and more educated and more exposed to different cultures and people and the times, we're bringing that to older well-known musicals and older well-known stories,
Hmm.
because there are new ways to interpret things,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because we have to change. Things have to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a way of casting things at one time, and that just won't fly anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to do
And
it
it,
differently.
Yes.
I think that's going to ultimately be an exciting change for not just for us in the industry, but for the audiences when they realize, yeah, these stories that they think they know because they've seen over and over again, or they've studied in English class or whatever, you don't know because we're going to tell it to you in a different way with different people and from a different perspective, and you're going to rediscover that story,
Hmm.
and you're going to find out what you didn't know that you thought you knew. It's going to be hopefully a really, really exciting time going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the version of Music Man that I did, I played Mrs. Peru, and Alana Hibbert was my daughter, and David Kimber was my other son. It's and
Mm-hmm.
that interpretation of the story, people didn't question it, but it
Yeah.
was like, oh, well, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It challenges people as why can't stories be changed,
yeah.
and why can't casts be changed? And if you put somebody in here, oh, that's my neighborhood.
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And for some folks who see Serving Elizabeth, this will be their first time engaging with the histories that are explored in this play,
Hmm.
Yes.
which I also think is really exciting.
Yeah.
Working in education, it's one of the plays I'm most excited to share with schools this fall, the filmed version of it, because I think it explores some of those questions that young people are really, really excited about, but also introduces them to stories that maybe they haven't thought about before.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't. There are. Yeah. When I think about when I was a student, there are so many questions that I didn't even know to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know to. I didn't even. I didn't even. Yeah. I didn't even know to be aware that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So to be able to get that different perspective, no matter how old you are, but to be able to start to say, you know what, there's this side of it too, and it's really it opens up so many good explorations, and yeah.
Another interesting thing, a challenge for the audience will be as as audience members, we've had to adjust our ear to iambic pentameter and
Hmm.
Shakespeare, the way they spoke in the time of Shakespeare. The audiences will have to adjust their ear to hearing different accents,
Yeah.
which is something that
Yeah.
in your everyday life you have to do. But it's interesting to educate the audiences in that way.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's how it should be for us
Yeah.
to hear all of that difference,
Yes.
Hmm.
and to engage in it the way we would with Shakespeare, and the
Hmm.
way we've been invited to in that way for so long.
Hmm.
Um, there's another question coming in from Violet, wondering, Sean, do you have a favorite show that you've done at Stratford? And for the both of you, um, are there shows that you hope to do one day that you haven't done yet?
I I was hoping we'd get this question
Oh,
actually.
good.
Yeah, my dream role is actually to be able to do the show that I was going to do last year in 2020. I would really like to be involved with that in the future. Um,
Can you tell us a bit more about Here's What It Takes for folks who might not be familiar?
well, here's what it takes is this uh, kind of it's uh, written. The playwright Daniel McIver has written the book, and Stephen Page, formerly of Bare Naked Ladies, but his own solo career, uh, has written the music, and they've come into collaboration with Donna Fior, who is the director, and um, and it's this kind of great idea. The simplest way to think about it is like a fictional jukebox musical. You know, like a jukebox musical that tells the story of the band, taking the established hits of the band to tell their story. Well, this is a fictional band, and Stephen's written these fictional hits, and they're telling the fictional story of this fictional band. But as opposed to other, sometimes when um, composers try to write hit songs for a show, like Stephen can write hit songs, so it actually, hopefully the audience will get this experience of like, wait a minute, do I know this band? Anyway,
Is this a real band?
is this a real band? I feel like I've heard this song. Anyway, it's just it's going to be a great new musical. It was supposed to be one of those shows in the Tom Patterson and open the Tom Patterson Theater last season. So I just look forward to when it gets to be done.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Arlene? Is there a show or a role that you really one day hope to get to do?
Yes. I still say I want to do Hello Dolly. And that's
Yes.
That's why it was the first that came to mind as your example.
I will be first in line to buy my tickets.
What do you love? What do you love about that show, Arlene?
I just think it's so much fun. There's the music is great. I love the character. And yeah, I feel like I would be old enough and mature enough to play her right now. Yeah.
I like this. We should be season planning right now.
Somebody take her up on this.
Yeah. We have time for just a couple more questions. One, Elizabeth has a question going back to Serving Elizabeth. Do either of you have a recommendation for what to maybe watch or read after seeing the show? Something that could expand folks' understanding of the questions that the play explores or the histories in it?
Ooh.
The first thing that comes to mind is the festival YouTube channel has had a lot of really interesting discussions this year, last year about race, about the changing nature of theater, about steps going forward with people that can articulate those issues much more eloquently than I can or have. I would suggest going to the festival's YouTube channel and seeing a discussion that you might connect with. That's my first thought.
I'll also mention the program notes in the house program were written by Mackenzie Musyoki, who's worked on this show.
Our dialect coach as well.
And your dialect coach. And so has shared in his program notes, he shares a lot about particularly the Kenyan history that this play explores. They're really, really helpful, I think, to read before or after you see the show. And they're available on our website.
I mean, there's so much. There's so much out there for people if they're interested in. It's where do you start? It's just to open your mind and to question when you see situations come up where in the theater or in television and film, and wonder, why was that casting done that way? Why was that story told that way?
Yeah.
Was that the truth? And to question perspectives that you are seeing, and if it's reality, because you are out here in the world and you see what's going on in the world, and then you go and you see a movie and you think, oh, that doesn't sit right with what I'm really experiencing in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't add up to ask those questions.
The reality.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, it's actually a great question, but a really hard question to answer because I don't know what's going to come up for you as an audience member. So just whatever questions you have, pursue them. As Arlene says, there's so much out there. So whatever it is, there'll be something out there to.
And that's great that this show is creating questions, charging you to ask questions,
Hmm.
And
challenging.
I should add, like, the show, I think, like you say, reverberates with these big questions, sometimes difficult questions, but it's also very funny. Like, I think it's a very funny play.
Yeah.
With a
Thank
lot of
goodness. Yeah.
It's
with a
not
lot of
heavy per
humor.
se, but there are strong, very strong moments. There are heavy
Yeah.
moments. It's got
No,
everything. It's there's a
no,
lot
no.
going on in this play.
And she's
Yeah.
smart. She knows
Yeah.
how to deliver a, not a message, but serve up a topic with a little bit of levity to kind of, so you're not let off the hook, but you have a moment to breathe and laugh. And
Yeah. It brings you in. It sneaks
yeah.
up on you in that way, in a
Hmm.
really
And as our
beautiful way.
director Kimberly said, there's a hero in there. Everybody has a
Yeah.
hero that they'll probably find and follow throughout the storyline.
Oh, I
Right.
like that. Yeah, absolutely. Someone is also saying maybe as a follow up, they would like the recipes that Sean made. So when you see the play, pay attention to the food that's being made at the beginning, and seek out those recipes
Yeah,
yourself. That's a great
I
follow
just
up.
found them on the internet. So, I mean, I'm not,
Google is
anything
your
that I
friend.
found, you can find.
um, okay, I think I'll take our last question here, and it is, what do the two of you love most about working at Stratford? Arlene, this is your first year, and you've talked about like just embracing it, going full on. Sean, you've worked at the festival for many seasons. What do you both love the most about it so far?
Sean's probably going to have a much longer answer because he's been here for so long. But what I got from this being my first season is from the wardrobe people to the sound people to everybody. Um, these are everyone I have experienced is someone who is bringing their best, bringing their A game, who wants to make who wants to make our performance, wants to support our performances, who wants to bring the best, which inspires me to want to bring my best.
That was actually my exact answer. That's what I was going to say. I mean, I've worked with, at other places and other theaters with wonderful, obviously, people, but in terms of just the whole community of artists behind the scenes in the shops, uh, uh, you know, behind calling the lighting cues, building the sound designs, the composer of the music uh, that runs through our play. There's just such a level of excellence and dedication to um, these fine arts. I obviously have a strong connection to the wig department in at the festival, and they are it takes my breath away every single time. There's just no other um, place like it in terms of the detail and the care and what they put into things. And that's just one department. It's all the departments that uh, it makes you want to be a better actor, person, human, all of that.
Well, that care is so evident in the two of you in this conversation alone. I'm so excited about this show, and it's been such a gift to talk about it with you both this morning. Oh, I'll also mention Marcia's been watching and loving our interview. So
Yay!
a shout out to Marcia and her
We
amazing
wouldn't be
play.
here without you, Marcia.
Exactly.
And we'll be thinking of you all as you start previews today. And so look forward to sharing this show with you. For folks who are interested, it starts previews today, and there's some tickets available through the run of the show. So take a look on our website or call our box office to learn more. And for those of you who've been joining us for Meet the Festival virtually this year, our next one is next Saturday, September 4th, and it will focus on freedom. One of our cabarets this season, which explores the spirit and legacy of Black music. So we hope to see you with us next week. And please join me in thanking Arlene and Sean for their time today. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.